we are on the Ultimate Sports Network talking real boxing talk, and we have no idea where today's show is going to go. So strap up, strap on. Oh, never mind. Strap in something. Be prepared for something. Yes, and it started. Okay. We were talking off the air a little bit about what's happened in the last weekend of boxing. Regis Prograis, I'm Red Cash. We had Tony Harrison come back and Demetrius Andrade come back, along with a few other things. But let's go to the Prograis fight first and the card itself, because we were talking about kind of how the world of coverage has changed a little bit. First of all, if you didn't know, John, explain to people where they could find this fight, because I didn't really even know what's happening.
It was it was pay-per-view. I can't give much of an explanation, Frank, because it was pay-per-view, and I just happened to find a link online. I'm not saying anymore, just to watch the Prograis fight. And I'm apparently it was pay-per-view through Twiller. That's the new promotional company, and they're coming back with one of their commentators who we were just talking about, the infamous Golden Boy, who was doing some things that night while he was broadcasting, talking like I've never heard him talk. It was actually kind of funny in a lot of ways. So that's in July, but I don't, they haven't released numbers yet, so I really don't know. But the discussion on social media has been fascinating with certain people, like me, like who I consider myself a purist, who are kind of groaning about some of the stuff, and then others going, hey, whatever. And it's like, yeah, I know, I understand, hey, whatever. Doesn't mean I got to like it, but I understand, hey, whatever. And it's like a combination of wrestling, entertainment, and boxing. And then they have live bands, and they had Justin Bieber on, which of course caused a gigantic, what the hell is that? So the music went on forever. I was watching it, bits and pieces of it. The music would go on forever, and the boxing would be less. So the band would be on for an hour, and then they'd have 15 minutes of boxing and exhibition fights, and Steve Cunningham fought. So it was nothing like the Tyson Roy Jones thing, which was more traditional, okay. Right? Yeah. This was like what you just said, Frank. It was like, I think look, we're gonna put the cameras over there. You guys sit there, and we're just gonna do it. That's it. Whatever you want to say, whatever you want to. Any profanity you want to throw out there, you do it, and keep drinking. And maybe the plan was to make it look like a bunch of guys in a living room getting drunk watching boxing. I mean, maybe that was part of it behind it, but it to me didn't come across like that. It came across more as very forced and uncomfortable in a few places. And but I will say this: actually, the guy who made the most interesting boxing comments was Snoop Dogg. He had Al Bernstein there and Oscar, and it was Snoop Dogg who actually made some comments. Ray Flores was there. So I don't know. I'd never, it was like a carnival mixed with wrestling, like I said, exhibitions, and throw it all in the air and see what sticks. Basically what it was.
Charles, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm going to put words in your mouth, which I tend to do on occasion. It seemed to me like, remember when in Columbus, Ohio, the Jazz and Rib Fest was really rolling, and people would go for different reasons. Right. Some people went for the jazz, some people went for the ribs, some people went for the beer, some people went to pick fights, some people went to just meet up with people they haven't seen in a while. It never seemed to be, it was to me, but it never seemed to be one particular thing. And they're capitalizing on a lot of things. Is that kind of what this is like?
Yeah, but I think because that back then was more of an event type thing, right? It was just like, it was popular, and the majority of people, the people that went for the purists went because they went, and it was thing to do, right? But I think this is more entertainment. This is more an event. The jazz thing is, it's going to be crowded regardless. The other people that are coming along, those other people picking fights and everything, they're just coming because it's the place to be, right?
Right.
In this particular situation, with this fight, it's more of an exhibition. It's an event where people are looking for something to do. The average purist, I mean, John did it because he's probably going to want to talk about it and talked about the fight itself from a coverage standpoint. But normally, if it was just some average dudes, I can't see John running out there going, "Yeah, I got to go see that guy," based on where it was. So I think that's the whole event process. I think it's people looking for something, and Snoop Dogg, believe it or not, this is like his second one because he was kind of involved with that Roy Jones and Tyson thing. That he started trying to build a following, and though there are people that like the music, they like the whole thing, people smoking weed on stage and just getting loose and doing whatever. There's more of a crowd. Contrary to belief, some people are trying to mix that together, like with the boxing crowd. And I clearly told somebody else on another show, that's not boxing to me. I mean, granted, there was boxing then, but these exhibitions is entertainment.
Right.
Now they did mix boxing in there, so it is boxing. So I get that. But for the most part, when you have exhibitions and people smoking and dancing and rapping and Snoop Dogg and everything, to me that's entertainment. And I would love for them to separate the two, because when people say, "Oh, did you see the boxing match?" I was like, "What?"
Yeah, what are you talking about, right?
Yeah, it was more exhibition. I would love to separate exhibition from boxing, but when they mix the two like they did here, and you got guys like Al Bernstein that are supposedly legendary in a certain way doing it, then hell, it mixes it up. So I feel it. But yeah, no, I think it's really event-wise, desperation to watch something. And even if you're not a boxing fan, hell, you spend whatever you spend, $20 or whatever hell it was, to see Snoop Dogg perform and talk stuff, then hell, people like that anyway. They'll give you $20 for that.
Well, maybe more like the state fair, where it's, you come in, you can ride some rides, you can go get some elephant ears, and then you can go watch crisscross play or whatever, and then do this and that.
I think that's a great analogy.
Yeah.
Because you got to have something that draws you. You might have something to do,
right,
but you got to have something. The Snoop Dogg, whoever else is there, is the draw. But not everybody's going to go to that. Like when you mentioned before, on the other realm, like the Jazz and Ribs, it's like Mayweather Canelo, Mayweather Pacquiao. People that don't even watch boxing, they just know it's hype, and everybody and their stepbrother is going to be there. And either they want to be there or they want to see it, they want to be able to talk about it. March Madness the same way. They just want to be involved because everybody wants to feel VIP because it's the thing to do.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, at least somebody's trying. I'm going to give them credit for that. I don't know if they're succeeding, but at least somebody's trying. And if I have to hear this Jake Paul's name again as a legitimate boxer, okay, he not to do that. I'll give him credit for that. As we said on any number of occasions, it takes a certain something to get in the ring and get hit and then to deliver a punch. Give him credit for that. But let's not get carried away. Okay, down to brass tacks. Did Regis Prograis look like he's back? I know Red Cash has been, beat up for the last few fights. Did it look like he's ready to challenge again, or was it just another exhibition, John?
Oh yeah, he started the first round was a little slow, but then he was just sizing up Rekbach, and then he just beat the crap out of him for 4 rounds, and then the fight ended very bizarrely when Ivan thought that a shot on the side was low. When he couldn't help but think this, and here it is again, where you don't want to accuse anybody of anything, but it looked like somebody said it. I will give it to him. Yeah, somebody said he was looking for a way out, and he was holding his genital area like he got. And it was far away. It wasn't even close. So somebody said, they were amusing sometimes. Isn't he aware that there are replays? I mean, people are going to see it. When you get hit in the side, right? And he's laying there yelling and screaming and like,
oh man.
So that was embarrassing. I mean, the guy has fought some wars with my paisan, John Molina, and he hung in real hard against Danny Garcia. And it was just each round he was just getting beat up. And it was almost like he said, oh, I'm going to get knocked out brutally here, because that's the way the guy fights, and Regis Prograis can really punch. Right. He's a hard puncher, and he was in good shape. He was doing his thing. I know he did it for whatever reason, and that's fine. He was part of it, but he did the boxing part very well, and he, like I said, he looked good, and it was a good win because it was a tune-up fight, but still he had to go out and do it, and he went out and did it, and he looked good doing it.
Okay, on another card, we had the return of Demetrius Andrade. Now, I didn't get to see a good portion of it, but something made me think to go look up something. So Charles, did you see the fight? I'm gonna ask you what you thought of that part.
Yeah.
And then I'll throw my little 2 cents later. What did you think of him coming back, and how did he look?
Yeah, well, I think Andrade was coming back, came back strong. Can you hear me? Hello, we can hear you.
Yeah.
All right, okay. So with Andrade's return, it's like you didn't really know what was going to happen, but I think he got a little bit more than he bargained for, right? Mm-hmm. But he persevered, and I think that says a lot about him, because the one thing that I wanted to know is, when you step up in competition, how will he fare? And no disrespect to him whatsoever. He's shown that he's talented. And I think this guy was a little bit, to me, I think first people thought he was just going to run through the guy. But I thought that he was a little bit more, he gave a little bit more challenge than most people thought. But I'm more impressed by what Andre did to win. And I don't mind stiff challenges or somebody that's kind of giving you the business than easy quick little knockouts. Because now it says to me, he's in tune to kind of get ready for that next fight. And I think he'll be okay. And just by the way he talks about himself and other fighters, you can't be perfect, but the question is, as long as you don't look sloppy. I've seen other guys try to come back and look sloppy. I think back to watching when Keith Thurman tried to come back at one of his recent times, and he didn't look like he had it at all. So.
Right. Well, John, now Charles made the segue for me, but stepping up in class for Andre, and I went back and I said, let me look at who he's fought. And we've talked about this, maybe not because of who he's fought because of him, but who he's been able to fight. And I looked and I said, there's got to be someone sprinkled in here that I thought, or we thought, had a chance to become top 5 in the division. Who has he fought? And is that going to affect the fights he can get?
Well, he hasn't really fought like a middleweight that you would think he would fight. He's fought. He's undefeated, obviously, we know. And this guy, Liam Williams, who he fought over the weekend, had won like 7 fights in a row, and it's that argument that we've made in the past is it that his management team just can't land a big one, or are they just protecting him from what they're afraid will happen if he gets the big one? Actually, I personally think the guy is a good fighter, and if I was his management team, I wouldn't be hiding him behind a wall or something. I'd put him in there. I'd put him in there with Golovkin. I'd put him in there with Munguia. I'd be talking Canelo. I'd put him in with a Charlo. I mean, no guarantee you're going to win, but that's like anything in sports. You got to match up and see what's going to happen. But if you watched any of the fight, and I've seen 3 or 4 of his fights, the guy is a really talented fighter. The problem is he doesn't have that signature win that you're talking about, Frank. The guys he's beaten, if he was going to fight Billy Joe Saunders, remember? That was a big one. He was going to fight him, and then Billy Joe had to go and blow it and get busted for steroids. That would have been very fascinating to see what would have happened, because that would have been a technical boxing / chess match. And Billy Joe Saunders, who's fighting Canelo in a few weeks, he's never lost. And that was a few years ago when Billy was really, really on a roll. So I want Andre to fight a top guy. I second what Charles was saying. He's 33 years old. It's kind of like a Crawford thing. Crawford's fought some top guys, obviously, but stop wasting time. But if he can't get anybody to fight him, something's wrong. You know, I don't hear, I heard Charlo go, well, he's not calling me out anymore after the Liam Williams fight. And then, of course, Andrade must have heard about it because he said, yeah, I am. Anytime you want to go, let's make it. So I'm so tired of them talking and everything. I want it to happen because I really want to see how he would do against, but I won't go out on a limb, and I'm not. If he fights any of those guys, he's going to do well. I've seen enough of him that he's the real deal. He's got some skill. It's just because then my theory has always been when you're a guy like him and you're fighting guys that are not as good as you, sometimes you lower your game a little because you can't get motivated to lift your game. You guys know this, playing sports. You used to have in basketball, you'd be playing somebody you're so much better of, and you wouldn't be focusing and you'd be kind of going through the motions, right?
Right.
He fights somebody who's a challenge, he's going to lift his game. That's what I'm thinking. Mm-hmm. And if he fights a Charlo, and Eddie Hearn said something about he wants Golovkin to fight Andrade. Okay. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, but yeah. He would like it to happen. Golovkin's talking about fighting in Japan on December 31st. He's a guy who used to fight all the time, and I think he's just stretching it out as long as he can. You know, I'm 39 years old. I don't know what I got left, so I'm gonna fight once a year maybe.
Well,
no, I saw most of the fight, Frank. People say this. Let me just say this real fast. People say this about Andrade: is if you survive the first 3 rounds, you're going to survive 12 with him, is he takes his foot off the pedal. And there's some truth to that, but he's not a big knockout guy. So what's the old Raiders slogan? Just win, baby.
Yep.
That's what he keeps doing. And I just want him to fight a guy that you think will give him a hell of a fight. Williams gave him a fight because he's tough. But other than the skill level, you could see in the first round, I mean, knocked him down and everything. You could see, oh, now there's. So I think Andrade might have got a little bored, but put him in there with a top guy. Then let's see. And I think, like I said, I think he'll rise too. So it'd be a damn good fight.
Well, but Charles, there's this thing of, you know, and we say it in sports all the time, you know, it's not practice that makes you perfect. It's perfect practice that makes you perfect. And, you know, some other cliches like that. If you are used to fighting and you've gone this far and you're undefeated and you're 30 some years old, will you be able to step up your game when it's time to step up your game? If you're used to fighting at this level and just coasting through a fight, not saying that's what it was, you know what I'm saying? When it comes time to say, now I got to go full bore, is that 5th or 6th gear there?
Well, see, unfortunately, the unknown, that's the unknown, so we don't know. I mean, but as a fighter, I'm sure Andre is saying to himself, hell yeah, it's there, but you don't know unless you try. So, I mean, I don't think logically you can answer that question because he hasn't fought anybody on that level. But it doesn't mean he can't get it done. But until he does, then all we can go off of is what we know with these, I wouldn't say second-tier fighters. Yeah, we call them second-tier fighters. But until he steps up in class, he doesn't know. He says he's ready. But like you said, until you get in there with a quality guy, there's really no true answer to that. Well, how will you face against a Charlo? I mean, I would love to see the Triple G fight because Triple G's older, right? And this is a chance for him Andre to step up and go, hey, yeah, okay, he's a legend. I'll beat him up a little bit more because he's older. But if he takes a setback, it's like, well, hell, maybe you're not ready. I think it's a safe fight for him to find out one way or the other. But I tell you what, if he loses that fight, there will be no Charlo fight. Yeah, because that's how they run the game. But no, I think that only stepping into the ring with better talent will show whether or not he's capable. And that's a question that is just going to remain unanswered until he does it.
Well, John, you mentioned something. We've got another fight to look at, but you mentioned something that made me think a little bit. Can you think of a fighter that I don't want to say praise, heaped a lot of praise on, but was kind of kept away from the names and the tough fighters, and then was exposed and or proved that he could actually fight? By the time he was 21-0 or 28-0 or something like that, and hadn't really fought anybody, but we've been talking about him like he was somebody. And then we said, now there's no place else for him to go. He gets the title shot. and either he just completely got bombed out or he proved that he had the goods. Just off the top of your head, anyone just jump in your mind and go, he didn't fight anybody and then he fought somebody.
Well, I remember, and this isn't exactly 100% what you're asking, but I remember when Vladimir Klitschko, wasn't a title shot, fought Corey Sanders. HBO was going on and on about this guy was the second coming of Joe Louis, Jack Dempsey, Jack Johnson, and everybody under the sun. They had him proclaimed as the greatest fighter in the last 30 years.
Right.
And I am not that I'm always right, but I had my doubts about him. I was like, okay, he's good and everything, but let's let him fight somebody who fights him back, because it was the same kind of thing. And Corey Sanders was never what you would consider a top guy, but he could punch. He was awkward.
Right.
And if he was primed, he was a tough out. So there was a little bit of question about Klitschko's chin, but there wasn't that much question. But Corey Sanders, as you guys remember, bombed him out and I was laughing. It sounds cruel, but I just thought, well, there you go. He finally got exposed. So who else? See, I always got to go old school. Vicente Rondon was considered, he was going to destroy Bob Foster. See, I got to go back when I was a kid. And instead, Bob Foster destroyed him in 2 rounds. Foster was like the first guy that he had fought that was really, really, really good. And he got wiped out, and that happens. Sometimes a guy comes in with a glittering record, like here I go with Bob Foster, like Mike Quarry. Mike was 35-0 when he fought Bob Foster, and and then wow, this is amazing. Well, he's not fighting. He's doing like we're saying with Andrade. He's fighting lower guys. He was a good fighter, but he didn't punch very hard. And Bob Foster, well, as you know, is lucky that Mike Quarry survived that fight, and he was never the same after that. So there are always examples of guys that they go into a fight and you think, I know I'm forgetting some, but they're not, the newer ones aren't popping into my head, which is surprising. But we got guys right now that we're not sure of, and that's what makes it fascinating. Virgil Ortiz is 17-0 and 17 KOs. What happens when he fights some guy? Right. So that's what makes it so fascinating about boxing. They either do it, like Charles said, or they get exposed. And Andrade, if he's not ready after 30 fights and 33 years old, he's never going to be ready.
Never going to be ready.
So people on social media go, how long is this guy going to be a prospect? And that's not fair. I mean, he's been a champion for a long time, and that's not fair, but that's how cruel people are. But I mean, if I was his management team, I think I'd be saying the same thing. Look, let's find out. And back to what Charles said, Golovkin, he'd outbox Golovkin rather easily for 3 or 4 or 5 rounds. And then if Golovkin, the old man, kept coming, which he will, he's never been knocked down in his career. I can't see him going down. That will be where we find out about Andrade. Can he take it if Golovkin starts pounding him? So I think Golovkin's thinking the same thing. He's like, nah, I don't really want that fight because I could lose that fight. I'd rather go to Japan and fight this guy Murata and make $2 million live with 80,000 people, and maybe be set up for another Canelo fight. So, but that's a good matchup for Andrade. Yeah, I think if his team got offered that fight, they better take it.
Well, Charles, is there anyone that's sticks in your head? It's like, we really thought he was going to be somebody, and then he either became somebody or he didn't, because we just put him in there with the champ after his career.
Yeah, you're not gonna like this one, but I'm gonna say it anyway, because I think it's we don't know. I think some people love it, but then it might be fool's gold, and I'm gonna say Anthony Joshua. I mean, it's just what it is. I mean, I understand about Klitschko and all that. Klitschko was older. Klitschko kind of gave him a run for his money. He came up and did that strongly, and then after that, then you go and you face an Ortiz, right? And we know what happened there. You can say what you want to, but you had the opportunity to come to the stage, which everybody knew, even despite what you did across the pond. When you came to America, it was your shot. You came to America, it was your shot to show the world. Everybody's watching you. Are you that good? And he came over and he flattened out. And I know it happens. It's not to say he's horrible or a bad man, but he did that. He redeemed himself, and he fought a different kind of way. He wasn't the brute or the stronger puncher where the guy's trying to knock somebody all the time. He kind of adjusted, boxed, and did what he had to do to win. And I give you that because you need to get your title back. But now, since that has happened, it has parlayed him into and pushed him up into a higher class. Now you're sitting at the top, getting that shot you always said you wanted. You wanted to prove that you are the best. You're getting that opportunity. Right. It's just not against Wilder, so supposedly against Fury. But yeah, he's the first one that came to my mind because I've heard for so long before he came over here how great he was. And it was just like that. And I said, I watched, I said, okay, he got a lot of potential. Man can move around a little bit. And then he beat Klitschko, and then everybody was, oh, he's the greatest thing. Then he lost, and then it was like, okay. But yeah, but with that being said, I think though he's perfect for your analogy right now because of the fact that now he has that pinnacle. He's at that pinnacle where you get a shot to prove yourself, and you might get 2 shots at it. So you can't blame anybody else for whatever. They didn't give you the calls in America. They didn't like you in America. This is his shot. You might get 2 shots at it, and if it doesn't work, then who you gonna blame? Sometimes you got to stand out there and be a man and go, I did something right, and I'm gonna take all of the credit. Or I did something wrong. And as Yellow Beezy, the great rapper Yellow Beezy said, "It's on me, baby."
Well, I've got 2 of them that come to mind, and I think it's both of them because they had a perceived, if not actual, physical advantage over most of the people that are fighting, getting to that point. The first is Nikolai Valuev, because he was just you couldn't touch that guy, and he's just knocking people just crazy. He's a foot taller than most people he's fighting. Until he fought somebody 6'6", 6'7", 6'8", doing, oh, I can reach you, and you're a lot slower than I am, and you don't move, and your head is as big as a Volkswagen. I can hit you whenever I want to. But there's something about a huge heavyweight that's a quarter the size of most heavyweights where you think, maybe this guy really can be dominant because he's a dominant sized person. And of course, the comparison, like, he's just another Primo Carnera. I'm like, well, yeah, but I wasn't getting in the ring with Primo Carnera, so why would I get in the ring with Valuev? And that didn't last that long. The other one is, and Charles is going to chuckle at this one because I was all in on this one, was Paul Williams. I was all in on Paul Williams. Yes, I know. I was all in on Paul Williams. I don't see what's wrong. He's 6'2.5", fighting at 118 or whatever the hell he's fighting at 140. And
145.
He's having problems.
Not that skinny, Frank.
Getting below that weight. Yeah, he's actually But I mean, but you're like, he didn't have any problem making weight. If anything, he had to eat to get to that level. And he's throwing 1,000 punches around, and he's doing this and he's doing that. Like, he's fighting on the inside. He's take that guy. But the thing is, they build him up on, I won't say cupcakes, but I whole hype and all that. I still think it was a hell of a fight. But he was done, and that was it. Okay, we proved something. Move along. So I don't know if that. Oh, you quit smiling at me. I don't know if that has anything to do with what we're talking about now. I'm not the expert here. I'm just the guy that runs his mouth. I don't know anything. But there are guys sometimes you go, wow, where did this guy come from? Or they keep putting him in front of my face. I've got to say something. And I see there's possible. It's like betting on a horse race or betting on the Suns right now. Are the Suns really going to be that good? Can they win it? No, I thought not. But they're the number 1 team in the league, so who knows? Okay, moving on. The last fight of the weekend that was of some significance, and we had been talking about this guy getting back in the ring for some time, gets back in the ring, Tony Harrison. What did we see there? First of all, let's bypass a lot of stuff and let's look at the split draw that, and this goes along with what we were talking about before. John, we've got it, 117, 111 one way, 112, 116 another way, then 114, 114. Is it possible that put the three of us in a room and watch a fight? Is it possible that there would be one of us over here, one of us over there, and the other one right dead down the middle? And we're not professional with this, but is it possible we're going to see two completely different fights? And what did you think?
Apparently it is. I think it depends on what you're looking for. Now, I was actually scoring that one while I was writing about it. I was watching it very closely. And I thought the good fella, Perella, won it. I thought he won 115 to 113. Now, the rounds were so close that obviously I figured that it was going to be anyway. I had no problem with the draw. I think that Tony Harrison fought the wrong fight. I do. He was too patient. If he had pushed up the ante a little bit, he had his jab when he fired it was sharp as all hell. I think if he's going to blame anybody, and he won't, but he blamed himself and his corner because his brother wasn't, I don't think, giving him, his brother was telling him he was winning the fight by a mile. Right. You can't tell somebody that because you don't know. And Perella, the Paisan, he had something to prove. So he came in, he got stopped in the 10th round in his fight before that by being stupid. And he had Roy Jones in his corner, and he had worked with Roy Jones for a few months, and he was primed. Roy Jones had been telling him, look, you can beat this guy, and he bought in totally. He was listening to everything Roy Jones was telling him. He executed his plan perfect. He ran out of gas a little, but I thought he won it. I did. I thought, but the draw was fine because, again, back to your question, some of the rounds could have went this way or this way. So when I heard 116, 112, and then 117, 111, that was a little surprising. But again, do you like, some guys don't like it when a guy's moving and popping like Muhammad Ali used to do. Other guys like it when they want to score for the guy who's advancing. And Harrison was the aggressor most of the fight. But was he doing anything when he was the aggressor? Not really. So you can't ignore that, right? You got to give, Perella's the guy making the fight. He's the guy throwing the punches. He's the guy's getting offers. When Harrison would get offers, he'd win the round. But if he was just waiting to counter, Perella was just throwing punches. He threw more punches. He landed more punches. I mean, he's probably thinking, I landed more. I threw more. Why didn't I win? You know what I mean? I mean, that's the way that he's probably thinking. What else do I have to do? Right. And so, but he also missed a lot of punches. So if you're judging it again, you might go, well, yeah, he's throwing more, but it's not effective aggressiveness like Harold Letterman used to say. So yeah, I think real fast, Frank, I think the only way that you're ever going to get close to getting this right is with human beings is you almost have a criteria. You say, okay, we're all going to look for the same thing in this fight. Forget who the aggressor is or whatever. Watch it as far as scoring blows go. If a guy's walking forward, that doesn't mean he won the round just because he's walking forward. It's like Hagler and Leonard, right? Hagler was the aggressive, but in the beginning, my opinion, Leonard was the guy winning the rounds. He was throwing more punches and everything. So you'd almost have to set that up like that where, okay, if the guy's walking forward and he's not doing anything, don't give him the round just because he's walking forward. Make sure you consider what the other guy's doing if he's throwing punches. So, but again, I didn't have a problem with the draw. I felt a little bit bad for Perella because I thought he won it, but he didn't seem upset. His corner didn't seem upset. So Tony Harrison didn't seem upset. So I think they were all pretty much on the same page where it's like, okay, look, we don't have an L. We'll come back and fight another day. And for Perella, that was huge. Because he stepped up, he fought a former champion, held his own. So, he's thinking, oh man, I'm gonna get more money the next time I'm in there. So if anybody won that night, in a sense, it was him.
Well, Roy Jones. Charles, well, and Roy Jones. I always, for that thing that John just said, I always look at the De La Hoya Pernell Whitaker fight. Like, I don't know what De La Hoya did. I know he did stuff, but he didn't do anything to affect the fight. Now, having said that, Whitaker didn't fight back. He didn't get hit, but he didn't do a lot of hitting either. So, and I'm not that I still think Whitaker won the fight, but I can see how difficult that would have been to score, because you're saying, okay, if one guy's not hitting the other guy, but the other guy's not trying to hit the other guy, who do we value what they're trying to do more? I don't know whether that works or not, but that's the way seeing that now. I didn't see that 10 years ago. I didn't see it a long time ago, but I'm seeing it now. If Pernell Whitaker actually would have, as he's ducking and diving and all that, actually threw a punch, maybe I could see where, okay, there's no distance. Mm-hmm. Who do you think, Charles? Because I know where I went. Or was it a draw?
I think it was a draw. That's just me. Because of the factor that they both were trying to come at one another. Harrison clearly had the upper hand coming in because he had a little bit more of the marquee far as who he fought and everything like that too. I know judges say that doesn't sway them at all, but he had the upper hand. I think if he would have kind of came out there and just did a little bit more, he probably would have got the decision easier. But then again, you can't. His opponent was like, this, like John said, this is my shot. I'm gonna give it all I can. And if he'd done a little bit more, maybe he would have won it. But some judges come in with that. It's almost as if they were kind of looking at Harrison like the champion, right? Kind of give him a little bit like an unbiased kind of look. But I don't know what was going on with Harrison. Maybe he was coasting, but I think what he has to do now, if he comes back, is to go like, look, every time I get in the ring, I need to think if I'm fighting Charlo. Because I guarantee you, if he was fighting Charlo, he wouldn't have done that. Yeah, he would have came in with that attitude. Exactly. He would have been on his game. I don't know what happened, but I think that lull or his lack of urgency, should I say, is something that really hurt him and put him in the position that he was in. But then again, as John so eloquently said, that when you make a mistake or you don't do what you're supposed to do on his end, and you can get out with a draw, you run for the hills with it. You take it. You take the money and run and be happy to fight for another day.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't pretty, but it still keeps you in the loop for somebody else. Because maybe now, and Erickson Lubin or whoever it may be, I'm just saying, throwing some names out there, but somebody else in that range or whatever will fight you because they think you're easier now. Because they saw what you did against this opponent, a guy that supposedly everybody thought you were better than. And then you had a so-called subpar performance. So with that being said, you might get that shot because they're like, oh, well, hell, he easy. Now I'm going to go ahead and tear him up. And Harrison on the other hand, like that. But as John said too, the opponent came in was like, I had nothing to lose. I'm good. And more money for everybody. So hell, it's win-win, except for perhaps the audience that was watching it. But it was win-win for both fighters. But I'd say a draw.
I wanted to go someplace else with this today. I'm not sure if we have time to do it or if we want to do it, get into it. But we were talking about a couple of things last week. Now let's do it. What the heck? We were talking about how would we put a particular person that we've anointed as a legend in with another group of people at that point in time. And we kicked it around a little bit. And I was going to do the graphics to put it all together. I thought, okay, let's just talk it out first. I can add it later. If we were to, this might even be a whole nother segment of the show. I don't know. If we were to drop Mike Tyson, and we kicked around this a little bit last week, into the 70s. Let's just look at who you had to fight. And I'm going to go straight up this first one. Mike Tyson versus Joe Frazier. Yeah.
I think that's one and done. I do. I think that's a one and doneer. I think the one, unless it was just they both knocked each other down numerous times, and then there would be one more. But I think thinking about, I want to put them in their prime, so I want to think about the Tyson before he went to jail and all that messing around against the Frazier who fought Muhammad Ali on March 8th, 1971. Smokin against that bobbing and weaving quick Mike Tyson. Oh my God. I mean, the one thing about Mike Tyson, I'll say this, is his later career really took away some of his aura, or a lot of his aura. When he was knocking everybody out, we know this. See, now he's an example of what we were talking about. The guy who was unbeatable. No one could beat him and all this, and then Buster Douglas. Boom. See, so he's a prime example of but a lot of that has to do with styles too. So if you put Joe Frazier and Mike Tyson in the same ring, they're the same size. Tyson, they're 5'10", 5'11" tops. Tyson not 5'11", he's 5'10". Frazier was 5'11", a little taller, right. But he's bobbing, doing the Jack Dempsey, Rocky Marciano thing. I would give the edge to Joe Frazier unless he got caught in the first round, because Joe was such a slow starter. If he survived the first round and Tyson started really fast, he might knock him down a few times in the first round. But if he was still there in round 3 or 4, bye-bye Mike. That's the way from 1971 Frazier, because when he gets smoking, he start grunting, throwing those left hooks. Over. So Tyson would definitely be very competitive and be right there, and he might even win. But I don't think you even asked me this because I couldn't quite hear the question. But if I was to give anyone the edge, it would be Frazier, just because of that extra level that if he could survive, couldn't against Foreman, but Oscar Bonavena knocked him down a few times and he got up, and Bonavena was strong as a bull and he survived. Look at all those shots he took from Jerry Quarry in the first fight we saw. I mean, he was getting his butt kicked. It's like it wakes him up when he started to get hit. Like, okay, now I got you. Muhammad Ali hit him with some hellacious shots in the first fight. So if he survives, makes it to round 4 or 5, I think that Mike Tyson would be going, oh boy, here's that old thing we talked about, guys. I hit him with everything I got. He's still there. Now what do I do? So, but that would be one heck of a. Might even be similar to Hearns and Hagler, I would think, in the sense because of the the youth, the speed, the power both guys packed. I mean that's why I'm shaking my head, because it's a dream fight. You would be almost like you get chills, like holy moly, this would be incredible to see this one.
Okay, so you have Frazier, Charles.
Yeah, I think it will be a 2-fight package, because however it went, I know particularly if Tyson lost, he would want a rematch, because he would think that he could beat him. And it's like something else I could have done, and nobody's stronger than me, particularly at that level and at that size. I want to fight this guy again. So I think he would do everything he could to try to get a 2-fight if he lost. But I think the one thing where Frazier would cause some problems for Tyson is the factor that he fights on the inside, right? And when you look at Tyson and his fights, when he did fight somebody on the inside and they were a little bigger and they used their head, right, as far as a shield, as a battering ram, he didn't like that so much. And
whatever you want to call it, right?
Yeah. But Frazier, we know how that is. With somebody so much smaller and closer in size to him, he wouldn't have a problem moving forward, and he was going to go after him. He has no problem fighting in what we call a phone booth. And I think that would cause Mike some problems, because when you're in the phone booth, you're here, but Mike Tyson has to, do this and that. And Frazier was known for that too, but Mike Tyson always sometimes had to wind up. But Frazier's going to be right there. If he could put his head, as they say, on his chest and just wail at him or get somewhere in there close, that's where he's going to be. So he doesn't need a bunch of, that jabbing and stuff. He's going to be right there. And that's going to cause a problem. As John said so well, that Mike catches you with a shot early on. I mean, he can knock almost anybody out. I get that. But the wars that Frazier went through, particularly with the Ali situation, you're talking about one of the most mobile, the greatest technicians of all time. And even though he was sitting out for a while, Frazier took him to the bridge and dropped him off. So with all that being said, I would have to go with Frazier just because of his ability. And he fought everybody. I mean, you never, truthfully, let's be real, you only saw Frazier really get crushed one time throughout his whole career, unless he got older. But I'm just saying, think about it. With all the people that he fought, he only got really crushed. You're like, oh my God, he's out of his element. And that was Foreman. And as much as I want to harp dog Tyson, because Lord knows too many people love that man like he could do no wrong in the ring. But I think sometimes when we're talking about styles make fights, he would have been somewhat limited. And this would have been something that he would have been like, man, this dude, similar to me, size-wise, but it's his worst nightmare from the standpoint of the dude's gonna be there. You're not gonna run from you, he ain't gonna try to back off of you because you're putting too much pressure. He gonna come with it, and it's like, can you out pressure me, more than I can out pressure you, that type of thing. So it'll be a hell of a battle, but I think they will go twice because I'm gonna give Frazier the first one, and you're gonna tell me Mike Tyson, like, you took my title or whatever it is. Yeah, I want another shot, and thinking that maybe I can do something else to beat him.
Okay, now it's my job to do this, but I do it willingly here. I take Mike Tyson, and let me tell you why. For a lot of the things that you just said, I'm going to say the opposite of it, but same basic idea. Because Frazier was known for that lunging, flying left hook, right? And that's where he did a lot of damage. That's the punch that knocked down Ali. That's going to go around Tyson because Tyson's going to be right here. So his best punch is going to be negated by the fact that a guy that is his size is inside of him. So he's not going to be able to throw that left hook around that, as we were talking about in an earlier fight, that you can't see coming. He's not going to worry about seeing it coming because it's not going to land because it's going to be backing here. And Tyson is known for being inside and getting those uppercuts in. Whereas that is where he's going to be able to do his damage because Frazier's throwing out, not up and in. So I think Tyson's going to win by knockout just because he's going to be inside and be able to throw those ripping uppercuts. Now, it's going to be a hell of a fight till it gets there, and it's going to be exciting. Like I said, head on chest, well, actually be head on head at that point. But think about it that Frazier was in with and all the greats he was in with. How many times was he in with someone his size? He had built his, and not to say he couldn't adapt, but he had built his style on beating taller fighters. Not to say Tyson didn't have the same problem, but the way Tyson fought, he could have fought anybody short, tall, big, slow, whatever, because he got inside and he was throwing those uppercuts. And that was, you watch it when he was in training, boom, boom. And that would have been dangerous to anybody, let alone Frazier. I think for Tyson to get beat by someone, it's got to be someone who keeps him at distance. And Frazier's not going to do that. You're playing into what Tyson wants to do when you invite him inside. Prime Tyson, I know if you're talking about the guy that just kept hitting him in the head with the head, but Prime Tyson, you're playing into what he wants to do if you're going to fight toe-to-toe inside with him. Not to say it's going to be cakewalk, not to say that Frazier doesn't land a shot, and Frazier might land a shot and Tyson doesn't have as much of a chin as we thought, but I think Tyson was inside of the danger zone, which seems like a silly thing to say when you're fighting Joe Frazier. But the safe zone is going to be on top of him, not at distance. So I take Frazier.
Interesting. You mean Tyson? Can I say one thing? I guess you.
I'm sorry. I take Tyson. Yeah. I
just guess you forgot about them brutal. I'm not even gonna cuss. Those brutal uppercuts that Frazier put on Ali. That literally had that.
Oh, I'm not forgetting about it. No. Yeah,
so I found that ironic though when you mentioned about like Frazier don't have an uppercut, because I'm trying to tell you.
I didn't say he doesn't.
No, I mean, okay, I'm just saying, for clarity's sake and argument's sake, the one punch that Buster Douglas used to send almost Mike Tyson night was the uppercut, and then he followed with the right cross. So imagine, I'm I'm just saying, imagine Frazier drops that uppercut and that wild left hand you said coming up to follow up. I'm gonna say this. I think it'll be a hell of a fight, but I think it'd be a lot closer and it'd be so much more where you could see two guys maybe using some of the same tactics, trying to outdo one another. So, I mean, I feel what you're saying. You have a right to say what you do about Tyson, but Joe Frazier was a hell of a fighter. I think he was a lot smarter than people think. And I'll just say this.
Yeah.
As I get off of this is, I'm going to go back to the point. Who the hell did Mike Tyson fight? That's all I'm going to just say. When you really look at that record, we talk about the real deal. Sure. I'm just saying. Who did he fight?
Sure.
We know Joe Frazier. Who did Tyson fight?
Bone Crusher Smith.
I'm just saying.
I agree. No.
Hey, Frank, you're forgetting another thing too. Yeah. Frank, real fast. Let's take a second. Joe Frazier, and I don't know if anybody ever did this to Mike Tyson, but I bet you money Joe Frazier would do it. Joe Frazier would be, if he didn't hit him with the left hook you're talking about, he'd hit him to the body with that left hook. And he'd hit him over and over with that left hook until he softened up, and then he'd throw that. And it wouldn't be lunging against Tyson because he's the same size. He'd just fire it. Bam! So, I mean, I hear you, but
like, as we said, it comes out of nowhere. Sure.
Yeah, I hear you, but I don't think Tyson. Right. I don't think Tyson could take it. That's. I don't think he could sustain it all that.
Okay. Well, that's why I said I have to be contrary because I can't let it go 3-0. All right. Second part of that of this, let's ask you this, John.
Okay.
How many jabs are thrown in this fight? Over under? 200? 12? I mean, is this a jabbing kind of fight or is it just a power puncher's dream?
No. It's a phone booth fight. That's what. See, I agree with what Charles was saying. That's what Frazier wants is a phone booth fight because he was so damn good on the inside. Again, go back and watch him when he fought Jerry Corey. Not very many people could beat Jerry Corey on the inside, and Frazier did it. He just ripped the crap out of him with those left hooks to the body and the chest and the forehead and everything. They might try to jab a little bit just because that's what you're supposed to do. Maybe to try to get in a little closer, even though I don't think that's going to be a problem. I think it'll be more like
problem, right?
I think it would be more like bring it on. They'll both be feeling that way. There won't be any cutesy stuff going on. It will just be like, I might throw a jab. Maybe I catch you off balance a little bit so I can fire my left hook at you. Or Tyson might be doing that and throw, one coming in like Floyd Patterson used to do, the peekaboo, bam. And that might work. He'd score with that, and then he might land one of those uppercuts you're talking about. But now I don't. The jab's going to be a secondary. This is going to be a power punching, survival. Who can take whose best punch and then win. And that's what I mean. That's why I said Hagler Hearns. I think it would be just hell or fire or war, whatever you want to say, for however long it lasted. And that's why it'd be the fight of the year most likely. And Charles is right. I mean, that's why I changed when I said 2 fights, because it would probably be such a good fight they'd have to fight one more time. And then Frazier would kick his ass sooner the second time. I had to throw that in there, Frank. Sorry. Thinking about Tyson and
Sure. Yeah, right. Okay, Charles, is there a need for an official on this one? I mean, other than the, count 7 when's ever necessary and to say run over. Will there be much of a job for the official to do? Any punches or any low blows, anything, headbutts? Is it just ring the bell and go fight?
No, you're gonna need an official, just because we know what Tyson was known for was some of the when he got mad or he was getting hit, he was known for just like kind of clocking dudes. So the referee is good because for every once in a while when you got guys just like wrestling or inside in that phone booth, you need a referee to just kind of say, all right, back up, and then they go back at it again. After a while, it kind of gets sloppy. You might see some illegal tactics or even guys just trying to hit any way that they can. So, no, I think you definitely need a referee. But you wouldn't have to do a lot because they're going to do the work. But every once in a while, it's good to break them up, reset them. But it wouldn't be like you got to go over here and push a guy over here. It's gonna be like, okay, I'm out, back in, out, and that's how they're gonna be because they're fighting in that phone booth and they're used to it. But now just trying to reach. The only thing I would be a little nervous about is I can see a lot of headbutts, bro.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
And that might shorten the fight because of a headbutt.
Yeah. Mike Tyson. Anyway. So, yeah.
Well, okay, that question, John. Now I'll end it at this one. What are the chances this goes the distance, whether it be 12 or 15 or whatever we have it at? What is the chance that this goes the distance?
Very small chance. In those days, it would have been, because I'm going back to Frazier's day. That's the way I'm looking at it. That would have been 15 rounds.
Right.
I'm thinking like Tyson got stopped with the 10th round against Douglas, right? I'm thinking it would be later. I think Frazier would stop him, around maybe a little earlier, maybe 8 or 9 or something like that, just because he would I just think he would take over at certain points and just start pounding, and that would weaken Tyson so much that he would go. But 9, 10, 11 rounds, I can't see it going 15. No way, because it's just too much punishment they'd be landing. I don't see how 2 human beings could stand up to that much punishment. Frazier did it against Ali in the 3rd fight. It was incredible how he never went down when he couldn't even see when he got hit with those white hands. It's amazing. So you would have 2. And I think I don't like saying anything about Mike Tyson's heart. Some people say that about him. I think he was heart. He had a lot of heart. He was gutsy. He got up against Douglas somehow. He had no idea where he was. I mean, I think he's unfairly maligned for some of that stuff. But Charles made the best point, as he often does. Joe Frazier was one really super tough guy, and he only got beat badly 1 time in his entire career. And that's not going to happen here. So I think I think probably, I'll just say round 10. I don't see no way it's going 15.